Hello everyone, Anestarita here. Today, I want to talk to you about the tools we have to create real-time ready assets that you can integrate in your Unreal and TouchDesigner interactive projects that use VR and AR. In general, independently of what platform you're working on, real-time ready assets have very similar requirements. You want to have an optimized geometry, and that means having a low poly count wherever possible and a perfect topology. You want to make sure your UVs are properly distributed so there's no UV overlapping. And you want to make sure you have a consistent textile density to avoid weird stretchings of the texture. You want to make sure that all your textures are optimized on power of 2 values, meaning you want to make sure your textures are 64 by 64 pixels, 512 by 512, 1024, 1024. You get what I'm trying to say. But those are the most common values and are values that are easy to understand and like to process by the computer. You want to make sure also your materials are PBR whenever possible. And one of the reasons why you want to create your materials as PBR is because it guarantees consistency of looks. So if you're creating your assets on Maya or Cinema 4D, if you use PBR materials, you know that whatever you are seeing on that 3D editor is going to match whatever is going to be the final result on the render engine or the game engine. So that's one of the reasons why PBRs are so useful. They guarantee that consistency. The other thing, whenever possible, having multiple levels of detail. And that's very good if you're working on real projects that have very large scenes. It can really save you a lot of processing. If you have animation, you might want to consider baking them and make sure they loop seamlessly. So you don't have to have a lot of very long animation, just short loops that you can like reuse throughout the project. And you want to make sure that your scale is consistent. This is critical when you're working on VR and AR, where a lot of times users have the feeling of being integrated on the scene. You want to make sure the scale feels right. And so that's one of the things to consider. And finally, you want to make sure that you're using an exchange format that allows you to bring all the information that you created. You want to make sure that it has the animations and the materials and everything, but also is optimized for your final use case. So for example, FBX and OBJs are very widely acceptable by everybody, but GLTFs are really good when you're working on AR, as well as USDCs. So some things to consider. And of course, we usually have the software we use to create our assets from scratch. We have Cinema 4D, we have Maya. I don't want to talk about those right now. I actually want to talk about some of the libraries we have access to that allow us to create things very quickly. You have a scene, you want to populate it. How do you do that super quickly? So the first one is Quixel Megascans. And this is a library created by Quixel, acquired by Epic Games a while ago. And what is so cool about this library is that it has a tons of materials, a tons of textures and surfaces, but also a ton of 3D assets that have different levels of details. They are optimized from Unreal Engine, and actually you can import them directly into Unreal through the Unreal Marketplace and the Epic app. So this is a great library. It has great selection of assets. The other thing is Sketchfab. And Sketchfab not only has like the general things that what is so cool about it too is that you can select the poly count that you want to use. And this is very important when you're working on AR and VR, particularly for mobile devices. You want to make sure that things do fit a certain size. So Sketchfab has the ability to allow you to select the poly count you want to use. And also you can select whether you want to make sure your materials are PBR. You have the Unreal Marketplace. We all seen this. And of course, all the assets on the Unreal Marketplace are optimized for Unreal. However, a very cool thing to know about this is that you can get assets on the Unreal Marketplace, 3D assets that then you can export to use on other 3D apps, like Imagine TouchDesigner or whatever you want. So for example, in this case, I have this scene that I got from the Unreal Marketplace, and I want to export this archway. What I can do right now is that I can select it. I have to make sure things are on my scene. So it's on my scene right now, not only on the content browser. I select my asset, I say File, and then I can say Export Selected. And here I have the possibility of exporting my file as an FBX file. And so, or an OBJ file or STL, whatever I want. In this case, I'm going to select an FBX. What is so cool about it, it creates this dialog where I can select what I want to bring or what I don't want to bring of my XBX. I can export it. And I can just bring this asset afterwards to somewhere like Cinema 4D. And so here I have my asset and I can edit it and change things or even keep consistency. If maybe I'm doing something where some things are running in Unreal, some things are running on TouchDesigner, I have the asset to keep consistent between the two environments. So that's like a very cool thing that you can do with assets that you have from the Epic Store, Epic Marketplace. Another one is ArtStation. And ArtStation not only is like a great place to show your things, but also has an incredible marketplace full of like assets that are super high quality. At the beginning of this year, Epic Games announced Fab. And what Fab is, it is a marketplace that combines these 4 places. So Quixel Megascans, Sketchfab, the Unreal Marketplace, and ArtStation, all on a single destination. And the idea is creating a marketplace that is full of assets that are specifically optimized for real time. So it is like a very cool thing coming up. It will be cool to see when it's completed. It is still, I think it's launching later this year. But what is cool is, yeah, it is like a specific marketplace for these sort of assets. So it's good to keep an eye open for it, wherever it comes. And this is on the official side. On the other side, we also have other marketplaces that maybe are less thumbs up by Unreal, but they have great assets as well. You have TurboSquid, which has not only a great selection, but also allows you to select the maximum number of poly count you want to have on your project. So this is super useful working on VR and AR. As well as CGTrader, same thing. You can select the poly count limit, and they even have a section where you can select things to be like VR, AR ready. Sometimes, though, you get your assets and you find the asset you want, but it's not precisely on the poly count you need. Maybe your scene is getting too big. Maybe you want to make sure things work better. A very cool tool I really like to use is Quad Remesher. Quad Remesher is a plugin that you can download in here. An interesting thing about it is you can use it in any of these softwares, Maya, Blender, Houdini, and it was integrated on Cinema 4D 26. So a cool thing of Quad Remesher is that not only you can remesher your meshes, you can actually use vertex painting to control it. So in this case, this is a mesh that I have, and you can see it's very dense. I can do 2 things. I'm going to do both just to show you. So the first one is that I'm going to use actually the remesh option that exists within Cinema 4D. And this basically is integrating Quad Remesher capabilities in Cinema 4D. And I can just like drop it here and do my remeshing with this. The other thing is that I can use the plugin. In this case, you don't need a plugin if you're working on Cinema 4D. The plugin is mostly if you're working on like Maya or any of the other softwares. But I'm just going to show you very quickly how the plugin works, so you get an idea if you're on a plugin environment. The same thing applies to the remesher. So what is so cool about it is that you have a bunch of options. The first one is that you can select your target quad count. So it says like I want 5,000, and if I say something like, "Hey, remesh it," what it's going to do is that it's going to try to match that target count. Sometimes it's going to go a little bit higher because, you know, it's going to need more polygons to make sure the mesh doesn't degrade and disappears. But in general, it's going to try to keep a similar number of polygons to the one I mentioned I wanted. And so if you see, I have it in here, and I can come in here and say, "Hey, give me some information about this object," and effectively 5,600 polygons. If I were to do this on the remesher, it would be the exact same thing. I would just make my asset the child of the remesher. But what is so cool about it is not only this, I can do something like adaptive remeshing. So what is adaptive quad count? What this is going to do is that it's going to listen what I'm telling it, but it's going to add quads as it sees it that is necessary. So it's going to get a little bit higher quad count, but it's going to look really, really good. My mesh is going to be at any point very clear, and it's going to take a little bit here calculating what I ask it to do. So let's give it a moment. And here it is. And you can see this mesh is actually looking nicer than the one I had before. But what is really cool about Quad Remesher is not only this, is that you can use vertex color maps to tell it how you want to control your quad. So in this case, I'm going to just turn this off because I don't want to see it. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say use vertex colors and I'm going to click P. Again, this is the same pipeline if you're using it in somewhere like Maya or Houdini. And so what you would say is that you create your vertex count. And in this case, if I double click in here, I get my vertex painting tool. And what I can do is red means very dense quads, and green means not very dense quads. So I'm just going to come in here around my eyes because I just want to make sure this area has a lot of quads. And of course, you see I'm painting back here. This is because I'm doing a quick demonstration. You want to make sure things are properly distributed if you're doing it on your case. And I'm just going to hit here green because I actually don't need anything in this side. If I come in here and I say, hey, actually, now let's remesh this using this vertex painting, what it's going to do is that it's going to calculate my quad density around the colors. So whatever is red is going to be very dense. Whenever it's green, it's going to be very few quads. And so what is great about this is like if you're working with very complex meshes and you want to bring them in any case, it allows you to say, this is the point of the mesh that I want to take care of. So if you notice, there's a bunch of polygons around the eyes because I told it I want a lot here. But this area is very, very like clean and empty in general in comparison with something else. These same tools are accessible inside the remesh. So if I come here and I say, hey, let's add a remesh, whatever it is, in here, I can just get this is not the one that is retopologized, this is the original. I can just add it in here and do the exact same thing. You see, and I can just, if you notice in here, is remeshing. So that's a very cool tool in case you find the asset you want, but like it is not exactly as you wanted. The other type of tool I want to show you are tools that have complete assets like Mixamo. Of course, this is Adobe tool, very popular. It allows you to bring your assets, your own characters. It has an auto rigger, so it's amazing because you can rig characters here very quickly and you can preview animations in real time. So it is a very cool tool. A lot of the animations actually match each other. So if you buy a pack, it's very possible. It's very easy to transition from an animation to the other. And something that is also very useful when you're working in real time is HDRIs. And Polyheaven is a gigantic library of free HDRIs that you can use. And they come on a myriad of formats. They are really great. They are very good quality. And the Unity Asset Store is another great place that it has a lot of FBX packs that you can acquire and integrate in your Unreal projects or your TouchDesigner projects. So those are some of the things. The other part that I want to talk about is asset optimization, which is a whole thing that is another area in itself. A tool that I really like to use for texture packing is this tool developed by Matthews Dallas and Rovan Linhalis called Easy Channel Packing. So what is so cool about this tool is that I can bring my mono channels that I have of materials in here and create an image where my channels are packed in an RGB. So in this case, for example, I want to create this material using an ambient occlusion, a metalness, roughness, and ambient occlusion. So I'm going to start including my metalness here on my red, and then my green is my roughness, and then my blue would be my ambient occlusion. And so what this does is that it takes all those three images and pack them in a single image. So each letter or each color channel corresponds to one of those textures. This is something that is used often when you're working like very big projects in Unreal. It makes it very easy to have something that is not like a massive set of things. So for example, in this case, I have this pack material, and here I have my texture that is a pack texture. So each one of these channels have the information. So because I know that my number one is the metalness, I can get my metallic in red. I know that in my green, I set the roughness, and I know that in my blue, I set my ambient occlusion. So I can just put it in here. And just like that, I have one texture to handle all those three channels that are actually mono. So that's actually one of the tools that is usually done to like save time and is texture packing. Of course, you can do this in Photoshop, it takes a little bit longer. What is so cool about this tool is that it literally does it for you with like no effort. So easy to use. Another tool I really like to use is Crushee. Again, talking about optimization of assets, this is a very cool tool that optimizes your PNGs and everything you want to bring. You can bring a whole folder of assets. Like you don't even have to like select something. You can select the folder or just the files, and automatically you can change the quality, or you don't. You say crush all, and this is saving it as PNGs without doing anything different, and it already saved me 22 megabytes. If that's what you're looking for, saving space, this is super useful. It is a great tool, and it doesn't lose that much quality. The last set of tools I want to talk to you about are the AI power tools. And these are real game changers, because as we move faster and faster on AR, these things are like clearly modifying everything. The first one is Sloyd. This is one of my favorite tools that I've been using. It is a mix of AI and human, and it creates game-ready 3D assets that allows you that you can integrate in your game or in your interactive experience, but also you can like modify them as you want. So you can create your own account and you can create a new project. And what is so cool about it is that you can start creating objects in this environment. And so once you're in here, you can say, hey, you can get an AI prompt so that it helps you to do, I could say something like chair with a tall back. And so once it's ready, it starts creating something like a chair with a tall back. And so here's my chair. What is so cool about this is that now I can control my level of detail, but I can control different aspects of my chair. And I can say things like, I want my wheels to be smaller, the radius larger. I want the wheels to be thicker or less thick. And I can start creating everything I want. This is such a powerful tool because these are usable 3D models. We're not talking about crazy AI with like weird edges. That is so cool about this. It's like a combination of people modeling things and building parameters, and then AI understanding those parameters. For me, this is one of the coolest tools and allows you to create your assets in OBJs or GLBs or GLDFs. So that's a very cool thing, a very cool tool to use. Another one I really like is Poly. It is the equivalent of Quixel Megascans, but with AI. In this case, you can create textures. You can describe textures and it creates them for you. So I can say like, I don't know, lava, and it starts creating, it finds images in here. But if I don't like any of these images, I can ask it to generate a new lava texture for me. And so again, these textures are PBR materials, PBR textures, so I can bring everything I need. I can integrate them in my project in Unreal. I can integrate them in my project in TouchDesigner, in AR, whatever I want. Super cool tool. And the last tool I want to show you, I'm going to wait to see if we can see our lava created. That would be a cool thing to see. Just going to take a while. And I can select the resolution. Of course, you can upgrade to have like higher resolutions. In this case, I'm just waiting to see my lava about to be here. AI takes its sweet time sometimes. And this is not very fiery, but I can keep working on it and getting things. And you can see that I have my normal maps, and I have my high maps, and I have my ambient occlusion and roughness. But the last thing I want to show you is this super cool tool by Blockade Labs called Skybox. So what is so cool about this is that not only you can create Skybox images that you can export either as lat longs or cube, you can actually draw things on it. So I can say, hey, I have my box in here, and I say a wonderful forest full of tree made of flowers. I can keep moving, and maybe I just want to draw my horizon line, isn't it? Like I don't want it to be where I put it. I want it to be back here. What is so cool about this is that I can start building sort of like the map of what I want. So it is like AI with some control. Like it's not only just things happening without any regard for what I want. This is a great tool. And so I can just come in here and I can select a set of styles that I have access to. Some styles are premium, but let's say what happens if I say Radiant and I say generate. What this does is that it's going to create a skybox texture that I can use on my project. I can use as a sphere that is surrounding my users or my environment, or I can use it just as an HDRI. So it is a very powerful tool it is a bit young still, but it is probably one of the coolest use that I've seen of AR. So if you notice, if you go here, you can see here my drawings, and my horizon line is roughly where I asked it to be. You can see it is actually following in there. And these are my trees. Every one of these colorful trees is the trees that I draw. So super cool tool. So that's all I have for you today. There's a million tools out there, and it's getting better and better by the day. As AI gets better, we might start having tools just like Sloyd, where we have a lot of control of whatever we want to do. But as well, we have all these libraries that allow us to create assets very quickly. Again, the most important thing with working on real time is not even where you create your assets, it's making sure your assets are usable in your end platform. So again, there's a million tools to do that. And I hope this was helpful to you. So see you next time.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like our YouTube content, I highly recommend you check out the interactive and immersive HQ Pro. The HQ Pro is the only comprehensive educational resource and community for immersive design, TouchDesigner, and creative tech pros. In the HQ Pro trainings, we cover almost any topic you can think of, and we go way more in depth than we do in our YouTube tutorials. We have a private group where Matthew Reagan, myself, and our other industry veteran and pioneer teachers answer your questions every single day. If that sounds cool, click the link in the description to learn more. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more free TouchDesigner and immersive content.